Hey everyone, my name's Mary Glasheen. I am in the Intro to Native American Literature class. My presentation is focused on Native Americans and fetal alcohol syndrome. Alcoholism is one of the most significant public health problems for Native Americans and has been for a very long time. There are many factors that contribute to the development of alcohol use disorders among Native Americans, as well as prevent them from seeking help, such as economic issues, cultural loss, domestic abuse, physical and mental health issues. So what is fetal alcohol syndrome? Fetal alcohol syndrome is a condition in a child that results from alcohol exposure during the mother's pregnancy. The defects caused by fetal alcohol syndrome are not reversible, and there is no amount of alcohol that's known to be safe to consume during pregnancy. So drinking during pregnancy, you are at risk, and your baby is at risk of having fetal alcohol syndrome. Symptoms of fetal alcohol syndrome. So physical defects. Facial features are just much smaller, including the eyes, a thin upper lip, upturned nose, smooth skin, flat face, deformities in the joints, limbs, and fingers, slow physical growth, so just much smaller than the average on the other side with no fetal alcohol syndrome. Small head circumference, the brain size is just much smaller as posted on the right. With fetal alcohol syndrome or exposure to alcohol, the child's brain is just much smaller. The head is smaller compared to the left picture of a fuller brain, more distinct facial features, a stuck out nose rather than a flat nose to the right. Underneath we see the top lip is much bigger and a normal feature, and the abnormal feature is the thin lip. We see the bow above the lip is more focused with the normal features, as to the abnormal, you don't really have much of an arch there. Symptoms continued, so we have brain and central nervous system. So not only does fetal alcohol syndrome give you physical defects, it actually affects the brain and central nervous system internally as well, which results in poor coordination or balance, intellectual disabilities such as learning disorders and delayed development, poor memory, trouble with attention and processing information. You may have ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, you may have a speech impediment. Processing issues is just not as easy. Poor judgment skills, jittery, rapid changing moods. Just overall, not very focused. Continued, we have social and behavioral issues. So this kind of goes off hand in hand with above with the brain and central nervous system. So your behavior is adapted to fetal alcohol syndrome, and it is different. You have difficulty in school, you have difficulty getting along with others, poor social skills, maybe isolated in class. A child with fetal alcohol syndrome growing up may be a troublemaker, they may be very quiet, problems staying on task, difficulty planning, working toward a goal. You're just all over the place. Fetal alcohol syndrome and the child. So fetal alcohol syndrome, as we stated above, this goes back to more towards the facial features that it can impair. So we have the picture to the right shows exactly where. So the eyes may be smaller, you have a flat nose, you may have a flat upturned lip. Everything's just kind of a little bit shifted. So how did FAS spark my interest? FAS sparked my interest after reading Tommy Orange's novel, There. We are introduced to a character named Tony Loneman. Tony Loneman has fetal alcohol syndrome. He was born with it. Tony's mother is in jail. She was an alcoholic, and Tony suffers from the symptoms of fetal alcohol syndrome, and as he calls it, the drome. He lives with his grandmother. He's 21 years old, and this affects him every single day. He feels different, and Tony's face, he feels, doesn't quite look right. People may look at him and then look away, as stated on page 16. Tony narrates his experience as a young person who basically failed the intelligence test and developed his own sense of intelligence, knowing what people have in mind. Quote from page 16 and 17. Who should care about FAS? Although this presentation focuses on Native Americans and FAS, FAS can affect people of all areas, origins, anywhere. Anybody who drinks when pregnant is at risk of fetal alcohol syndrome or any alcohol disabilities, diseases that you can get, not just fetal alcohol syndrome. Drinking while pregnant is a never to happen thing. Native American facts with FAS. So the average lifetime cost for one individual with FAS is approximately $1.4 million. This is not only just Native Americans. This is worldwide, across the board. $1.4 million is the average cost for one individual with FAS. So just think of that. The next quote or fact we have is about 32% of Native Americans live below poverty level. So, as stated above, with that 1.4 million is approximately a lifetime cost, Native Americans are at poverty level, below that. So, they do not have the capability to get the resources they need. That is another problem as to why fetal alcohol syndrome can be very, very harsh on some people. In some tribes, alcohol use is similar to or lower than the general U.S. population. So not all Native Americans have alcohol use issues. This is across the board. Everybody drinks, and it's some Native Americans drink more than others. This presentation just focuses on Native Americans out in alcohol use. Next, we have some resources that you can get. If you do need help, there is help out there. These are just a few that I found, but there are many, many, many more. Alcohol abuse is very common, and never be ashamed to ask for help. Above are some locations available to serve those struggling. And these are just my references for my presentation above. Thanks, everyone.